the funny thing with any Eli debate that I ever get into, anybody who argues for him going to the Hall of Fame, I look at them like they have 10 heads, and I'm like thinking to myself, did you guys watch the same player that I've watched? Dare I say?
I said it. Steven had to pee.
I don't know where you are, but you can show me. Go to privacy
Shoot,
settings.
my phone's going off. Here we are. All right. After a week of missing it, we had Steven down in Florida battling a hurricane. You know, he survived. Fred survived.
I'll take the W.
Sean did not survive. Sean's gone. No, Sean's got his daughter's softball game tonight. So, obviously, podcast, softball. Easy choice. All right, we're going to jump right into it. Big news today, Davante Adams. I ended up seeing him on the Pat McAfee show with Aaron Rodgers. You know, Aaron Rodgers gave him the little head nod. You know, come on in, bro. It's huge. I mean, we kind of all saw the writing on the wall. Rodgers isn't getting what he wants, so he cries. So his coach is gone. His boy is in town. How do you feel about that, man?
Well, first off, I was going to say, first off, I got to point out, I mean, not that it wasn't hard to call by any means, but Sean did say last night, Adams is straight up going to the Jets, and I mean, and then this morning it straight up happens. He's out of excuses, Aaron Rodgers. He's out of excuses. I mean, he's not on the same page with Mike Williams. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking Rodgers is just out of excuses now. They have to be playoffs or bust at this point for sure. That defense is still good. They've done a lot of coach shuffling as well. I mean, Woody Johnson's getting impatient clearly, and we shall see, but I think it's very exciting. I think everybody's value is going up, stock going up, especially fantasy-wise. So really excited for that from a fantasy standpoint. What about you?
Oh, man. I had a debate with a lifelong Green Bay Packers fan on who the best quarterback in the franchise was. He's stuck with Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is really showing his colors right now. I don't like the way the coach is playing or calling the plays. I don't like that the receiver that I'm throwing to isn't on the same page with me. I don't like this and this and this. And Aaron Rodgers, again, is crying to get what he needs. Here's my issue with this. Aaron Rodgers is crying to get what he needs, and he's getting it. And like you said, it's his last
excuse.
Card. He's playing his ace right now. I need Davante. Go get him. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers didn't show up on time. Aaron Rodgers isn't putting the work in. Aaron Rodgers isn't, at camp with the coach that got fired. He's not at camp with the receiver he has to throw to. So who's throwing to Wilson? Who's throwing to Wilson? The backup quarterback during camp. My issues with Rodgers. And, the crybaby getting what he wants and saying, hey, I don't have as much to, I don't have much to do with this behind the scenes as you guys think I do. Stop, dude. Stop lying to us. Do you think he had the call on the coach and him not being on the same page? We obviously saw the hug. Coach is like, yo, you finally did what I asked you to do, and he got a touchdown. And he goes in, the coach goes in for a hug, and Rodgers is like, yo, don't touch me, dude. You're weird. No, don't touch me. We missed that last week. We missed to talk about that last week. So I wanted to bring it up. Like the fake hug. I don't know. Rodgers is a prima donna.
For sure. And the shame of it is just, undeniably, back to your conversation about the Packers' best quarterback, he's undoubtedly the most talented in their history. Undoubtedly. I mean, Favre was great. Favre had the talent too, but he just was reckless. Aaron Rodgers really has seldom ever been reckless with it. He's normally a guy who will put up 30, 40 touchdowns, 4, 5, 6 interceptions, which is extremely fantastic of a touchdown rate. But yeah, the antics that you're talking about really just strike a nerve with people, and just it's the difference. It's literally the difference between being him and then Patrick Mahomes. Granted, Pat Mahomes had Andy Reid as his coach, was developed also kind of like Rodgers, sitting on the bench for a bit and then waiting for his time. But just, he doesn't need to throw for like 400 yards to have an impact on the game. We've been seeing it the last couple of years. He's not throwing deep at all. Rodgers needs to make all the big plays and needs to have the offense working the way he wants it to instead of playing to the system and trusting it. It's a tired story, really. And I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
Here, all right. This is how I'm going to seal the deal right here, okay? You have an elite running back. Your line's okay. You have 2 now elite wide receivers. You put Baker in there, what happens? Like, it's clockwork. He listens to we've talked about this on this podcast before. It is not only the GM, the coach, the quarterback being on the same page. These guys aren't. I feel like the Jets are doing the Jets thing where they tend to the star and not running a team.
Exactly.
It's enough. It's enough. I don't want to talk about Aaron Rodgers anymore. He got way more time than we should have spent on him.
Speaking of the AFC East, Amari Cooper now being traded to the Bills. That was huge, especially after the Devontae Adams deal was made. I think this is fantastic for both sides, and here's why. Amari Cooper has been disgruntled. He's playing with a, dare I say,
I said it, dude.
Of a quarterback. That organization is an absolute shit show, especially if they're going to keep tooting the horn of said apis to quarterback. Literally no better situation. Here's the funny thing with the Amari Cooper thing. And I hate to bring fantasy back into this all the time, but I have a team where I had Jefferson, Kupp, who's obviously hurt, Godwin, and Amari Cooper. And for the longest time this season, he's been the 3 catches for 40 yards, 4 catches for 50 yards kind of guy. Now he's playing with Josh Allen. Now he's playing for a team that needs an alpha wide receiver who's a great route runner and who can line up just about anywhere and do his thing. And I am overjoyed as a fantasy owner of him because I've been trying to lowball offers with him throughout the last couple weeks just to see what I could get. And now I'm just like, I trolled everybody by putting them on the trade block just because I've been offering at least 6 or 7 teams lowball deals for Amari Cooper. But
I did the same thing last week with Tank Dell. I did. I'm like, yo, who wants them? Come get them. I got offers. They weren't good enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild, man. I think that they are the 2 teams, the Jets and the Bills. One of those 2 teams is going to win that division.
Absolutely.
New England is still rebuilding. May had a great week. He had a great week, fantasy football wise. Thursday night was wild, man. Thursday night was wild. It was a 49ers show. So Purdy went for 250. No turnovers. It was a Purdy game. No turnovers. 250. 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I have Debo. I have Ayuk. I don't have any of Brittle Kittle. But it was an interesting week, man.
Yeah, I mean Brock Purdy didn't really do anything that I haven't already known. He's still I feel like he's one of the better sort of just kind of takes what the defense gives him and takes what's given to him from Kyle Shanahan and just plug away at it and just doesn't try and do anything too off script. But it works for him. It works for that team. I kind of picked Seahawks in this game because they were at home and it's a divisional matchup. And I thought after kind of how Geno Smith had been playing and how that team had been playing, I thought they could make this much more of a game. But it really was not the case. San Fran was up by a lot early. There was a kickoff return and a Ken Walker touchdown from Seattle, but that just shows that even with like a new offensive philosophy and a defensive-minded head coach who's really started developing the defense pretty solid, they still just have a long way to go. And they're not nearly as close to the 49ers as even I had thought. But, yeah, this was George Kittle's 2-touchdown game. And I feel like for the rest of the season, given how that offense is and given how it went last year when he had a 3-touchdown game, like he didn't really do a whole lot otherwise throughout the year. So it's just so few and far between where it's a crapshoot who you're going to rely on any given week. And it feels like Brandon Ayuk to some degree is kind of disappeared in a sense because, I mean, Devo's still doing his thing after the catch. The running game is shown out with Jordan Mason and even Isaac Guerrero, who had almost 100 total yards on 10 carries. Just nuts. We've had a long run near the end, but still, just, I mean, I'm kind of waiting for that Ayuk game.
Listen, you're waiting for the Ayuk game. There's still that disconnect between, I believe, the coaching and Ayuk. Like, Ayuk is a great player. Like, he's shown it. He's shown it in glimpses and you know, when Debo goes down and Kittle goes down, Ayuk's the only guy there.
Yeah.
You know, this year, I mean, when Debo was down, I believe Kittle was down, Juwan Johnson was a big free agent pickup.
Yeah.
I thought that was Ayuk's breakout. I was like, yo, let's go, Ayuk.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance of them trying to move him in the offseason? Because there's clearly a disconnect with the coaching and the usage of Ayuk in that offense from the beginning. Like, from the beginning. He's a first-round pick.
I think I think it's always going to be a story until he's out of there, and I think it's so hard. This was the offseason to move him, though. This is like, if you're looking at the teams now, like the Bills could have really used him. That really did make a lot of sense. The Steelers could have used him. That would have made a lot of sense. There was talks before of there being a deal in place with the Browns involving Amari Cooper and then Brandon Ayuk. That would have made a decent amount of sense. They probably can't stand Ayuk, so they'd want to send him to Cleveland, where, like most other wide receivers who've gotten traded to Cleveland, it hasn't fared well for them.
Nobody in Cleveland. Cleveland is like where you go to die. So for me, the way I look at it is the GM of San Fran, Lynch, right?
John Lynch, yeah. He
took Ayuk 1 overall because of what he saw, and this was young. This was early in Lynch's career, and I think he wanted to stick with him. And like, I think they got offers, but I also think that the offers were like, it's like, dude, no, this is the #1 pick. This guy can play. This guy can do things. I think the disconnect, again, you have to have from top to bottom, GM, coach, quarterback, all those things line up. I think that this thing right here with them is Ayuk doesn't, the coach doesn't necessarily agree with Ayuk, agree with the play, agree with, you know, maybe his choices off the field and on the field. And they kind of like, they push things away from Ayuk. Like,
sure,
we'll use them when we have to. But until we have to use them, we're not going to use them. And then the GM on that side is like, hey, I want to pay this guy. He's great. He's amazing. I like him. I trust him. But there's the disconnect, I think. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I got to say about that. Mason's injury, how deep is it? How, you know, are we worried about this?
Not really. I wouldn't say I am to a degree.
And CMC coming back? Likely or not likely? Not as I
likely, but I would probably give it another month.
Okay. All right. I love your answers, man. Sunday morning game.
Try my best.
Sunday morning game. I was on the soccer field. I physically I wasn't on the soccer field. My daughter Charlotte was on the soccer field. She did amazing. Good job, Char Bear. That's her nickname, the Bear. You know why? Because she runs people over, man. So listen, we got the Bears versus the Jags. 9:30 game, London. You're shaking your head already. I see it. I know you don't want to talk about it, but is it Caleb?
No, I do want to talk about it because I'm going to go through a sequence.
Out. Like, let's go. Go ahead.
Here's exactly what defined the entire game. Ready for this? This was near the end of the third quarter and into the fourth. Trayvon Walker sacks Caleb Williams for 10 yards. Penalty, Jaguars, too many men on the field defensively. 5-yard penalty, 3rd and 3. Next play, they force an incompletion from Caleb Williams. But what? Penalty. Defensive holding, 5 yards, automatic first down. And then right after that, DeAndre Swift rushes for 17 yards, another first down. 3rd and 10 to Roshan Johnson for 1 yard. Penalty, another defensive holding, automatic first down because of the holding. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. Zero discipline defensively. They don't know what they're doing. They shoot themselves in the foot all the time. Bad coaching, bad defense. Team just does not care. And after that moment, you could just sense a deflation coming out from that Jaguar sideline. And quite frankly, Andre Sisco kind of said it best. Like, everybody pretty much quit on the team. He pretty much laid that quote out there. And so now you can feel some toxicity coming soon. Doug probably should not make it through this year. That's what
I was going to bring up is the fact that, like, we're talking about this. I know earlier in our podcast, I'm a Doug believer. It might just be the Philly. It might be that. It might be the trust of somebody that's willing to make those calls that you have to do. But right now, they need a spark, and I don't know what to do. I'd fire the coach. I'd fire him. I like him.
Yeah.
But I'd fire him. You know? So that was the Sunday morning game. DJ Moore, 4 for 29 yards was his longest catch. What's going on with DJ Moore, man?
He left early in that game for a bit and got banged up a little bit. I truly think they wanted to get Keenan Allen involved because he had missed some time with injury, and they do like spreading the ball around a little bit. And he did great. Yeah.
Cole Kmet had a game. So we went from like tight ends doing nothing to tight ends doing everything. Like, I don't know if you saw this week, but like, there were some big games out of tight ends, and I like Cole Kmet. I always have. Rookie, I drafted him as a rookie for my dynasty. I've stuck with him, but he's not gonna. This was his game. He had a game. That's it. I'm done. Like, he'll have a touchdown here and there and do his thing, but done with Cole Kmet. Swift, 17 for 91, had a touchdown. Swift had a good game. ETN. Talk to me about ETN. You're a Jags guy. Talk to me about ET. Nothing.
So I won't even talk about ETN, and I won't even talk about Tank Bigsby, but I will just... Dearness Johnson, he came in, and he played a lot of snaps because Tank Bigsby fumbled on the kickoff for, I believe, the 3rd time this year. ETN, I think he's banged up. He's going to be week to week with, I believe, a shoulder after I also believe like a hamstring or something in his leg was bothering him as well coming into this week. I think he's just straight up banged up for sure. But I feel like Dearness Johnson, for at least a little bit, might be the guy. I mean, I think Tank Bigsby will get his share of like maybe 10 to 12 touches, but I think given some of the passing down, pass blocking, and just holding on to the football, it could be a Dearness Johnson getting probably 50% of the carries and 50% of the snaps still.
That's wild.
Maybe even more.
That's wild. Yeah. All right, so Frank, since Sean's not here, we're gonna rely on Frank.
What's up, Frank?
To run through some of the Sunday highlights, because we don't want to talk about what happened. We want to talk about what's gonna happen. Lions versus them boys. They are boys. That game was wild, and as a Eagles fan, I'd loved to see it. What was wild about it is how they just started. They were like, "Yo, let's get our offensive line into the offensive game." Did you see all those trick plays? And
well, yeah.
I thought it was amazing that they went that route. Like they wanted to say, "Hey, we are the NFC. We are the Lions, and we are gonna bite your kneecaps off. Good night. You are them boys." And they did. They made the Cowboys the boys.
Yeah.
What stood out in that game for you?
I mean, well, the offensive line plays were just a world-class troll job from the Lions because they lost because of the 2-point conversion where they got the ineligible offensive lineman for the 2-point conversion to try and win the game, and they won the game, but they got called for the penalty, which screwed them over. The controversy that ensued from that was mayhem, but just the Cowboys have become just so bad. Not just the Cowboys, but like the last couple of years, it was always like Eagles and Cowboys is like two of the top 4 or 5 teams in the NFC, at least first half of the year and 2022. Like two of the top 4 or 5 teams in the NFC period, possibly football. But now, like, we'll get to the Eagles in a bit, but both teams just have such glaring holes. The Cowboys can't defend. They've done really nothing to bolster their passing game around CeeDee Lamb. Jake Ferguson's fine, and Jalen Tolbert's developing still. But for an owner whose birthday it was, by the way, and they lost by that much, which makes it even sweeter.
I didn't even put that on the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, man. It was hysterical. But just they've made no effort to improve themselves whatsoever from the last couple of years. They're just like another solid team, but now their defense is just a freaking doormat. And the Lions are a great offense, but it's just it was just laughable. You're just kind of you love to see it.
Here's my question to you. All right, this is an off the wall. This is my X question for you. Okay, this is an X question. And I want you to think about it, okay? I want you to think about the Cowboys having Derrick Henry, giving him a $6 million contract, and having Derrick Henry instead of Zeke and whatever trash that they have in the backfield. How would that change this team's record? Oh, that's a tough one, man. Like you think about it. I'm gonna let you think about it while I talk. So, like you think about Derrick Henry and the games that he's had with the Ravens. Okay, Steve, do you think the Ravens' offensive line or the Cowboys' offensive line is better?
I think the Cowboys are trying to get back to what they were, and the Ravens are developing a little faster in that regard. I think it's a little apples and oranges, but I'll lean the Ravens. But I'll tell you why I think it's a little apples and oranges when you're done. So do your thing.
So there's that. In my opinion, I think that the Cowboys have a little bit better offensive line. You can disagree with me or agree with me, whatever it is. But
it's close.
But it's close. And I look at what Derrick Henry's doing up in Baltimore compared to the backfield in Dallas. I almost said DC, but in Dallas, if you would have like thrown that money towards Derrick Henry and Derrick Henry being in that backfield, that would have alleviate a world of issues that you're having right now. Because if Derrick Henry was a Cowboy, that team would probably be the NFC first place team, in my opinion.
I think that's perfectly fair. The one reason I'm saying it's apples and oranges, Dak isn't Lamar Jackson with his feet. And I feel like I think it's such a thunder and lightning combination with Lamar and with Derrick Henry. They both just make each other so much better because Gus Edwards quietly had a 13, 14 touchdown season last year. And Gus Edwards is a decent enough back, but he's kind of just another guy when you look in the grand scheme of things. And then you bring in Derrick Henry, killing clock and dictating the entire game with his punishment. And just, I think that was the perfect move for the Ravens this offseason, adding a guy like him to just make Lamar better with his feet and with his arm and just kind of make the play action so much better with them. But also just, Derrick Henry's never going to get everybody gravitating to him with Lamar Jackson on the field as long as he's got mobility. It's just, and I feel like with Dallas, they'd probably stack 8 guys in the box on him. He'd probably average a little less yards per carry. I'd agree they'd probably be a clear-cut favorite in the NFC East, especially compared to how the Eagles are looking, even though they're now fully healthy. But I do agree about him being on the Cowboys and what difference that would make. But I just think it was there's no way the Ravens could have let him walk away and choose a different team, I think.
So this is how we're going to end this, okay? Could you imagine Dak Prescott with a run-pass option? All right, look, you're talking about Lamar taking off. You're talking about, like, the run-pass option. Just the play action of handing it off to Derrick Henry and then having CeeDee Lamb out there open. Like, your argument was having, like, the run-pass option with Lamar and Derrick Henry. Could you imagine the Ravens having an option like CeeDee Lamb out there with a run-pass option? I think that, like, Dak does have that run capability, but to the same effect, he doesn't want to run. He wants to pass. So if you have that Derrick Henry, like, I'm going to get myself 5 yards, and then CeeDee Lamb out there, like, wide open, it's like, shit. That's where we disagree. Like, I look at that play action where, like, I could hand it off to Derrick Henry or go to CeeDee Lamb. Lamar is the staple of that Baltimore. Like, you're arguing, hey, I can give it to the bruiser, or I could take it and run 10 to 15 yards, but there's no one to throw to. We've already, like, talked about Mark Andrews and not being present. Flowers, how would you rate Flowers' season so far?
Yeah, he's been good. I think he's been good relative to how the position has been for the Ravens in the past. They've drafted some highly touted receivers before in the first round, early rounds. Look at Hollywood Brown, look at Rashad Bateman, who is coming along as of late, but it has really not panned out so far. And Zay Flowers easily, far and away, has been the most productive on a per game basis. And this past week, he had, I believe, 9 catches, 130-something yards.
So what you're saying is, let him cook. It brings me to the Steelers versus Raiders. Okay, so my biggest thing with that game is the Steelers won again. Guess who's getting first team reps in practice this week? Russ. Are they gonna let him cook? Fields has been doing okay. He's not lighting the world on fire. But why? Why let Russ cook?
My whole thing now with Fields is there's been a few throws that he's made where there was a throw I saw from Joe Burrow in the Monday night game to Yoshivash near the end. Burrow was rolling out. Yoshivash was running across the field towards the sideline, only covered by one guy, and it was a pretty simple enough throw for a really good quarterback. But making that throw on the run, it's a throw I think you should complete about 8 out of 10 times. And I feel like I'd seen a few plays like that from Fields where if Fields were in that kind of scenario, I feel like he would have probably completed 3 or 4 out of 10 that rate. And like that pass was kind of like a 20-yard pass down the field. He resorts to running a little bit too much for what I feel like Arthur Smith could be liking, even though that's kind of who he is.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Russell Wilson, because he can make a lot of those plays outside the pocket the way Fields is kind of doing it. But instead of running like Fields would probably do, he'd find his spot out of the pocket and make some of those throws and make some of the better throws.
More experience.
Yeah, much more experience too.
If you think about it, like, yeah, I agree with you. You know, when Seattle had that let Russ cook, that was what they were looking for. That's what they were looking for. The rollouts, let Russ go down to Metcalf, do your thing, right? I am a Fields guy. I like Fields. And
sure.
If the coaching staff isn't agreeing with what he's doing, but they're winning, there's the exchange. Do you switch things up and try and do like more of what our game plan is, or do we stick with Fields because we are winning right now? We are winning, and for me, keep winning. Just keep winning. You're not doing anything wrong. Keep winning with Fields. Let Russ acclimate and keep coaching him to where you want him to be so he can step in. But right now, keep winning. Bengals needed the win. They were 1-4 going into this game, I believe, right? 1-4. There's a big difference between being 1-5 and 2-4. You still have a chance. You still have a chance. So they needed this win.
Absolutely.
They went in. They got the win. How do you think? In all honesty, I'm nervous as an Eagles fan. I think the Bengals are going to come in here and crush us. After seeing that Browns game, where we survived,
sure.
And then the coaching with taunting the fans. Don't even get into it. Not going to go there. Steve, talk to me about the Bengals and their future. Do you think they're going to find their groove? Do you think that they're going to go on a run? Because the AFC North, right now, Pittsburgh's kind of owning it, but they're not.
Baltimore is good.
But
Pittsburgh,
Baltimore. You're right. Baltimore is owning it. You got Pittsburgh right behind them. The Browns, forget about them. But the Bengals, do they have a chance to make the playoffs this year?
So their next 3 games are going to be at Cleveland, against Philly, and then the Raiders. And then, so at the very least, those next 3 games, you were saying it better to be 2-4 and 1-5. Those next 3 games, they can go to 5-4 pretty easily if they play their style of game. I mean, granted, let me give the Giants defense some credit because that front 7 has looked so improved and that defense has looked so improved. I mean, holding the Bengals to really, they held the Bengals to 10 points until freaking Chase Brown ran right up the middle on them, scored that late touchdown. But they did a pretty good job taking care. I mean, they did, all things considered, they did a pretty good job limiting the damage of Higgins and Chase for sure, and getting to Burrow a bit, sacking him about 4 times, I believe. But they have the pieces and they have the talent. I'm curious what happens in that division because it's going to be tough, especially with how those 2 teams have started.
Falcons, Panthers, a game this week was ridiculous. Do you think the Dirty Birds, the Falcons, have a chance to take one of those wild card places in the playoffs? I mean, with Kirk Cousins and you know, their younger talent with Bijan, with London, with Pitts, you know, they have that young core talent with a well-qualified quarterback who's coming off a bad injury. Do you think that, in my opinion, Tampa Bay owns that division, but do you think that they can hit a wild card spot?
I mean, the Saints have shown they can be pretty good this year. The Buccaneers have really shown they can be really good. But the Falcons have beaten both of them. I mean, they've done their job in that division as it relates to how you play your divisional foes to make a difference in the standings come at the end of the year. I mean, they beat the Buccaneers, and the Falcons were down for pretty much most of the game, and then they never took the lead until that overtime touchdown pass to Kaderil Hodge. And then before that as well.
What'd you say?
It was one of their fifth string receivers, one of their kind of...
No, I think that's my accountant, dude.
Yeah. But yeah, and then before that they played the Saints and they beat them 26-24. I mean, the teams that they need to beat, they have proven to be able to beat them and to beat them in tough games. So I think when it comes down to the critical moments late in the season, I do think there is a lot of value in that, and their late season schedule is pretty favorable. Their last 4 weeks of the year, it's the Raiders, it's the Giants, it's the Commanders, who are obviously I'm not sleeping on, but the Panthers as well, week 18. Like, I think they can take 3 of those 4 games, especially if the Giants are kind of on the downward swing after this past game.
Team that I'm excited for, because I'm a believer in Baker Mayfield. I am a believer in Baker Mayfield. Tampa Bay versus the Saints. The Bucs still own the South. They just need to fix their stadium, man. Like, I mean, that hurricane took that stadium out. I don't know if you saw pictures. I saw pictures. Tampa Bay's for real, man. I think that the Lions and Tampa Bay are for real right now. And unless something big happens to either one of those teams, let's say Amon St. Brown goes down. You still got Williams. Let's say, Evans goes down. You still got Godwin. Like, both teams have the depth on offense. They are solid defensively. I think that's the NFC Championship game right there. Tampa Bay versus Detroit. And I wouldn't be upset either way, but I'm rooting for Detroit.
Yeah. You have to root for Detroit. We'll get to them in a bit after the Aiden Hutchinson injury, which was devastating. But back to the Buccaneers. They obviously have the receiving depth, but they have a lot of depth at running back now, too, because Rashad White's been hurt. They resort to Bucky Irving, who's been great. And then they had Sean Tucker, who was the undrafted guy out of, I believe, Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken. But he went undrafted. Good story. He went undrafted because of a heart condition. And... I mean, he had a couple really amazing plays in that game, and I think there were reports out there today that said he's kind of earned his way to making that Bucs running game a 3-headed monster, which means sell high on Bucky Irving, folks.
Yo, Bucky Irving and
Rashad White.
Yeah. Still has White on their roster.
I think his days as a bell cow are toast. More on that later, but. I think they're a team when come playoff time. I don't care what seed they're facing. Nobody should want to face them. They can score and they can defend to some degree, but it's just a matter of, like, I think come playoff time, if they get some home field advantage, that's not a place I want to go.
Players of the week. Here we go. Caleb Williams, 4 touchdowns. Didn't get over the 300 mark, but went 226 through the air. Had 1 interception. Great game. Caleb. The only thing that I didn't like is he wasn't throwing to DJ Moore. There's your top quarterback of the week. Jordan Love. Another 4 touchdown game. 258. So he outperformed Caleb with yardage. Still had an interception. Jordan Love had a great game. Arizona, what the hell are they doing? Like, I can't figure Arizona out.
They beat San Fran. They have a defense that I think has improved a decent amount. I think they're not a kind of a doormat of a defense anymore, but they're just so dysfunctional offensively. They lost Marvin Harrison due to a concussion also early in the game. I mean, it's kind of the same old story with Kyler to a degree. Like, there's not always like a plan with him when he's playing. It's just kind of improvisation, and you just kind of have to live with it. Green Bay was scoring a lot early, and when you're down 24-0 early, it's just
Yeah,
They're
at
scared.
that point, your game plan goes out the window. You have to throw. You don't have anybody to throw to. Marvin Harrison's down, so you really don't. You have backups to throw to. James Conner's not a factor anymore, where you can control the game. So yeah, they're out. Jordan Love, damn Love.
He's good. He's really good.
I hate the fact that Green Bay goes from Favre to Rodgers to Love. I like Love. And
They don't miss.
Jordan Love's doing great. 4 touchdowns, 250 yards, 1 interception. Baker, come on, man. Baker time. It's Baker time. Can Baker be the MVP of the NFL this year?
He can be for sure. The pass catchers and the running backs that he has, the offensive line is really a solid offensive line for sure. I just hope he doesn't make too many mistakes turning the ball over late in the season when teams have film on him. But if he keeps this up, he's in the running for sure.
Okay. We had running backs. We had Sean Tucker, who had 136 with a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown. We had Mixon, who had a 102 game, 102 on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown. King Henry. I feel like fantasy football's heating up. I feel like the big dogs are coming out to play. We haven't seen a week like this in a minute. We've seen people go down. We've seen this. We've seen that. The things that I think I know, I put them in play. The things that I think that I'm starting to see, I put them in play. And nobody could have predicted Cole Kmet being not only a top tight end, but probably a top receiver this week. That leads me to Brittle Kittle. I lost a week. I lost this week because of his 2 touchdown breakout game. He, in my opinion, sit him next week. He has these games where he goes bizarro, blows it up, and then he'll go out there and trip over a blade of grass and break his ankle.
Yeah.
That's the way
Try and play
I look at this guy. What are you doing? Yeah. You're starting him. You got to start him. The injury bug is just like the Grim Reaper, man. It's just leering over him with a sickle. He's ready to, yeah. But where are you at with Brittle Kittle? 5 for 58, 2 touchdowns, great game.
I'll tell you, I drafted him last year in my main league because I loved the chemistry he'd shown with Brock Purdy the year before when he was coming onto the scene. He had scored a touchdown in every game or every other game in 2022, it seemed. And then he got off to a horrible start last year where I really thought about dropping him. And then I believe it was the Cowboys game last year where he had 3 touchdowns and just went off. I think it was kind of around this time of year, week 6 or week 7, and he went off. And after that, he stayed inconsistent, but he'd still put up those 1 touchdown games on 4 for 40 or something like that here and there, give or take, to really kind of lead you on. And it was at that moment I'm I never want to draft a share of George Kittle again.
No.
The volatility sucks.
Exactly. So the next 2 guys that I want to mention, they both had close to almost. Well, one had 10 receptions for 102, no touchdowns. Evan Ingram, first week back, you see that he's a target monster. If you are in a PPR league, go get him. Just go get him. Trey McBride, same thing. With Harrison down, he was close to being my oh my God guy. But
Yeah.
Trey had 8 for 96, no touchdowns. If these guys had touchdowns, they probably would have won your week. Cole Kmet with the 2, Brittle Kittle with the 2. They won people some weeks. Starts and sits for the week. We're going to go with starts of the week. All right? Fred over here. All right? Hi, Fred. Fred and Sean are going with Monty. All right? The newest version of the Gus Bus almost, man. Monty is just he's a train wreck. Go ahead. Try and stop him. He's fearless. He will hit you in the mouth. He got the extension. And against that Minnesota defense, I think he's going to tear it up.
Absolutely. He fits what they're looking for out of that position for a Dan Campbell team. It's going to just hit you and run you over.
And bite kneecaps.
Bite kneecaps, yes. He will bite kneecaps. But yeah, it's unstoppable, that offense.
Great pick, especially against that defense. All right, Eggman, let's go with your pick. Tony Pollard versus
Tony freaking Pollard.
Buffalo dang Bills, Bo.
The Buffalo Doormats. Their front seven does not do anything against the run. It's ridiculous to watch. I mean, Breece Hall, I think Breece Hall is a fantastic running back. He had not been good at all the last couple weeks leading up to that game. I'm feeling 100 total yards and 1 or 2 touchdowns from Tony Pollard.
Listen, I got you down for 110, dude. You already said he's going 110, and due to Will Levis's play. Tony Pollard with 110.
110. I'll say 1 or 2 touchdowns. You know what? I'll say 2. Fuck it. I'll say 2 touchdowns.
Wow.
Somehow.
So he's going to be the running back of the week, is what you're saying. Tony Pollard.
He can be. Derrick Henry's still a thing, but guess what? I have Derrick Henry and Tony Pollard on one team. I'm very excited.
My start of the week, Bowers. With the absence of Adams. Listen, Adams has been out of the lineup. Bowers is still performing. As a rookie tight end, this guy is still performing. Yeah, Bowers is going to have a week, guys. My honorable mention, though, is the Giants' D versus the mess of the Eagles' offense. The Giants' D has been playing ball. And nobody's been really mentioning this, but against their division rivals, I really think that you should start the Giants defense. And I hate to say it. After the Mets beat the Phillies, I hate to say it.
I don't know if I agree with that. Here's why. The Eagles have just straight up had the Giants number over the last several years. But even with this regime too, they've been really good against them. They are fully healthy with the exception of Dallas Goedert, which, I mean, as good as he is, it hasn't quite mattered in the past. I think that I do agree to a degree that I don't think Saquon will have the game that many would want him to have as a revenge kind of game. But I do think that the secondary is banged up for the Giants. I think the Eagles' offensive line is good enough to withstand that pressure from the Giants that they've been getting, although they haven't really seen this new version of the Giants defense, so we will see. But I think Hurts will be able to escape much more than any other quarterback that they've faced with that front seven. But with Devontae and AJ back, it's I can't say Eagles are a cakewalk with that. I will say Daniel Jones, if there's a game that he should be able to bounce back from, it should be the Eagles. And if Malik Neighbors comes back, I do think that could be something worth watching, for sure.
Yeah, Neighbors needs to come back. All right.
Yes.
Not only from a New York Giants stand, he needs to come back for my fantasy football teams. Okay.
Yes.
I have him in 2 leagues. Hey man, who you sitting this week? Why?
I am sitting Rachaad White if he ends up playing, but if it's not him that's playing, I don't know if I'm going to sit Bucky Irving, but I'm going to sit Sean Tucker and Rachaad White, whoever takes on that role of conventional running back that's not really the pass catching running back. I think Bucky Irving can give you like maybe 4 or 5 catches for 50 yards and maybe a touchdown thrown in here and there. But from a rushing standpoint, I don't think Rachaad White's role is ever going to be the same again. I think the Baltimore defense is a great run defense, and that backfield is going to have a hard time producing. And I think it's just going to be a shootout in the sense of Godwin and Mike Evans and Sterling Shepard and K-Dot and are just going to.
I need K-Dot to just keep going, man. I do. I picked him up off of waivers. I've been streaming tight ends week to week, and Kate, Kate, do me a favor, just do it. Just be that guy that like gives me like 5 for 50, maybe a touchdown. That's all I need.
Yeah, 10 PPR points. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I need, bro. Sean and Fred, they're a tag team this week. Why are you sitting Alan Lazard? Oh, yeah, that's right. Because why would you start Alan Lazard? Nobody starts Alan Lazard. Why would you sit him? With Adams coming in, I don't understand why would you even start Alan Lazard. But, Fred saying sit him. Thank you, Fred. I appreciate you.
Let's be honest, too. Alan Lazard, most of his production came on a freaking Hail Mary pass that probably shouldn't have been caught with competent defense. But the Bills have just proven they're not that great defensively this year. But, Alan Lazard, Alan Lazard's a sit 95% of the time anyway.
What we're both saying right now is Alan Lazard wasn't a start. So why would you...
Yeah.
He's always a sit. He's always a sit. Anyway. So my sit of the week. My ex sit of the week is the Pittsburgh backfield. Doesn't matter who's running. New York Jets are going to stop it. Okay? Don't start either one of those running backs. That's it. That's all I got to say about that. Don't start them. They haven't been reliable. They're going against a good run defense. They don't know who their quarterback is. It's a very confusing team. That's what I'm saying. All right?
Yeah.
So, Steve, this is a new segment, Steve. New segment. I'm going to throw you through a loop here. Okay? It's word association. I'm going to say a word, and I want you to give me a player or a team or anything that makes you, just percolate the mind. All right? Here's my word. Clown. Who is your clown in football right now?
And Daniel Jones without Malik Neighbors. Just because if the Giants have to win with him throwing the ball and Malik Neighbors is not there, Wan'Dale Robinson is good. Slayton has been here and there okay for them when it comes to deep shots and whatever. But he got banged up against the Bengals a little bit. If they have to rely on Daniel Jones in a reasonably winnable game, you look at this game that they had the Bengals, you look at the game that they had against the Cowboys, the difference was Daniel Jones cannot make the throws that an average quarterback should make, a top 20 quarterback in the league should make. And every single time he walks off the field, he has the same exact stoic, dumb-looking face of just complete and utter, just you look in one ear and you can see out the other because there's absolutely nothing going on in his head.
Is it the Eli curse, though? Like Eli had that same, look of, huh? Huh?
You will not meet a bigger Eli Manning hater than me as far as his playing career. Off the field and his kind of charisma that he's shown, he's grown on me from a personal standpoint. On the field, he had 2 good games in his entire career. Every year that wasn't pretty much a Super Bowl win. It was a mediocre, if not subpar year where the teams were not good at all and were not threatening at all. They really were not. He only had really one good season, and that was his second Super Bowl year. And I mean, I can go on and on and on about how just overrated and just how I think he's just pretty much no different than a Joe Flacco or Jay Cutler kind of player, but with Super Bowl rings. Like, if that kind of makes sense. Joe Flacco's really become a good player now that he's a backup.
Could you imagine Eli coming in as a backup today? Like, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
But he would be a Joe Flacco. He would make the throws that he needed to. It wouldn't be anything downfield. It would be just dink, dunk, and, accurate throws.
But here's the thing, too. I'm like, the whole landscape with him of, like, people are going to make him out to be some Hall of Famer. And I'm thinking to myself, if he's a Hall of Famer, there's a domino effect of quarterbacks that you're going to have to put in the Hall of Fame to a degree. I think Big Ben is, in that case, a lock of a Hall of Famer. And he had a really good career, obviously. But I don't think you look at Ben Roethlisberger and put him on that tier of Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I don't think you look at Matthew Stafford. I mean, talent and all, Stafford's great talent. But as far as career standpoint, I know he played on a shitty Lions team. He won his Super Bowl. He could be a Hall of Famer if Eli gets in the Hall of Fame. But he probably shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm going to set up a scenario for you right now. Okay? You and your brother are sitting at that Thanksgiving dinner, right? You and your brother, okay? Let's say your brother is Eli Manning, and let's say you are Peyton Manning, right? And Steven, Peyton Manning is one of my favorite players of all time. You are one of my favorite people of all time. I adore you. I think that you're amazing. Peyton Manning did amazing things. He won two championships. And then you're looking across the table at your younger brother, okay, who you adore. You're friends. You love him. He's amazing. But he beat Tom Brady twice. And you don't think that your brother across the table is a Hall of Famer? I think Eli's a Hall of Famer. And I hate to say that, and I'm putting it in those terms because, like, you have a younger brother, and, like, you guys are both successful as hell, and, like, sitting there at Thanksgiving, you're going to tell me that Eli Manning is not a Hall of Famer. I think he is. And that's an Eagles fan saying, shit, this guy beat Tom Brady twice. No problem. Meanwhile, Tom Brady is 1 for 3 against the NFC East, okay? And he beat McNabb. Come on.
Can I ask you a question to counter that?
Yes,
so Eli Manning had what, 16, 17 years in the league? Did you ever fear him when you were competing against him? Did you ever, like, fear... I mean, like, obviously the name speaks for itself as far as Manning. Did he ever impose any fear when you faced those Giants teams? Or was it the defense and it was the rushing game? A lot of those years.
Did I fear him? During the season? Absolutely not. During the playoffs? Absolutely. Okay? So...
He didn't... for a vast majority of the year, you're talking about... So you answered... Obviously, you didn't fear him during the regular season. That's all there was for 95% of his career, basically. That's all you had to go on. And then you get to the play. So here's the best argument I've heard for Eli Manning being in the Hall of Fame. And I genuinely agree with this. Chris Collinsworth on one of the NFL 100 shows where they did like the all-time rankings, he said you can't tell the story of the NFL without Eli Manning beating the 18-1 Patriots. 100% agree with that notion. The story of the NFL as it relates to that and kind of the greatness of that Patriots team, and then for David to defeat Goliath like that, 1,000%. That is one of the greatest moments. I think you can probably put that top 5 moments in the history of the NFL, at least from in our existence. Fair? One of the craziest things that has ever happened in the NFL. 1,000% from that argument standpoint, I will agree. That is a valid reason. That being said, I mean, you only had regular season to go by with 99% of it. And Peyton Manning, obviously the playoff success was very up and down for him. And the second Super Bowl, people can argue, oh, he really was mediocre and kind of balancing time quarterback with Brock Osweiler that year as a Broncos quarterback. He was over the hill. But the amount of times he was as good as he was and the defenses let him down constantly, I don't put Peyton's shortcomings in the playoffs on Peyton as much as I put on the teams around him. And I think if we're looking at that from Eli Manning's standpoint, I think a lot of his success, while, like I said, the second Super Bowl, he was 100% awesome that entire year, his success was a byproduct of greatly built teams that he didn't need to do quite as much with because they had a great running game and had a great defense and would not be like one of those shootout type of teams.
This is where we disagree, man. All right? And I'm going to go against one of the all-time greats of the Eagles and say Donovan McNabb was an all-time great during the season. But when it came down to the playoffs, what did he do? He threw up in huddles. My point with that is McNabb never had great weapons. The one year that he did have a great weapon with Owens, he went to the Super Bowl. And what happened? He threw up in the huddle.
T.O. had played with a broken leg, too. Let's not forget that.
What were T.O.'s stats during that game with a broken leg?
Oh, absolutely. He had like 9 or 10 catches, 100-something yards.
My point is, McNabb didn't reach out to anybody else except for what he had. When you need a guy, I would go. Listen, you put Eli on that team, Eagles might have won the World Series or the.
Stop.
Nah, dude.
Stop.
Come on. Right now.
Eagles wouldn't have gotten there. Eagles, with that little weapons,
but,
I mean.
But my point is closers close. And my man, Eli Manning.
You gotta get to the closing.
This is Philly defending that he should be in the Hall of Fame. I know you hate me right now. I know you hate me because I'm playing devil's advocate.
I can never hate you.
I have a number 5.
I just think anybody...
Number 5 will always love you. Number 5 will always love you, but number 5 never brought us to the promised land. You know who did? Nick Foles. A backup. Because, I don't know, man.
Literally the most beloved quarterback in Eagles history, and he really only had a season and like a few games here and there for the Eagles. But I mean, no, the funny thing with any Eli debate that I ever get into, anybody who argues for him going to the Hall of Fame, I look at them like they have 10 heads, and I'm like thinking to myself, did you guys watch the same player that I've watched for however long he was in the NFL?
He disappointed during the regular season. He performed during the playoffs. He was clutch. Was he not? Was he not clutch in the playoffs? I gave him his flowers for the second Super Bowl he won, where he was easily a top 3 or 5 quarterback in the league. Easily. And if he had sustained, I don't care if he won no Super Bowls after that, but if he had sustained that level of play for 5 seasons, 100%, I would have been happy to put him in the Hall of Fame if he played like a top 5 or 10 quarterback the rest of his career after that point. Well, the rest of his prime of a career. This is the best argument we've had. I love it. Okay. I know that it's frustrating you. Like, I can see the redness on your face. We're getting somewhere here. All right. Thank you for that segment. We're going to go with most potential for this week. Most potential for me is Godwin. He had a blowout week last week. Evans is banged up. We know how players are when they're banged up. They try. Evans might start next week, but Evans he's banged up. And we see where Baker went with it. We see how Godwin responded. My most potential start of the week, let's go Godwin.
What, most potential of the week?
Yeah, your most potential. I love this.
Drake May versus the Jaguars. Drake May. Look, he threw 2 picks. He had a fumble. The Patriots got beaten by 3+ scores. But you know what? The Jaguars are terrible right now. They're spiraling out of control. he also showed that he has a live arm. He got 8 pass catchers involved, which, I mean, make of it what you will, given how deep the Patriots really aren't as a team. But he did that, didn't have Ramondre Stevenson in the run game. Made Pop Douglas look really good again. I think while the pieces there are still young and the offensive line still trying to find its identity, it's just, I think Drake May can replicate what he did last week with 3 touchdowns and 200-something pass yards and really put himself in position to make the Patriots 2-5.
Pats, man. Pats. Will they
I'm
ever,
getting too excited.
You think they're ever going to, like, rejoin their glory? Not me. Nah, never. Okay. So this is for my Mets friend, Sean. You know, the guy that usually sits here, right? But Fred's here this week. We decided to add an OMG, oh my God, kind of player.
Mm-hmm.
I talked a little bit about it earlier. Brock Bowers. I really think he's going to go off this week. I think that... Who else do they have to throw to? Can you name me their top 2 receivers? Can you name me their top 2 receivers right now?
If Jacoby Myers is healthy, then yes, I can name you one, but I don't think he's healthy. So, in other words, no.
No. Yeah, no. I don't think anybody can. I don't even think their coaching staff can. But there's one guy that they're throwing to. There's one guy that is catching it. There's one guy that is their offense, Brock Bowers. That's my, oh my God. The Mets are actually playing in the playoffs.
And they're 1-1 with the Dodgers now, so they have a chance.
You're
Has
saying
a chance to be a Subway Series.
All right, who's your oh my God kind of player?
Oh my God, Will Levis. And the reason why it's Will Levis is because, oh my God, is he going to make a really good throw or a really bad throw? Chances are this year really bad. But reports came out after the game that Calvin Ridley, his number 1, as many would think, I need some, referring to targets, I need some in the beginning of the fucking game too. Shit's getting fucking crazy for me. It is what it is. I suck today. I have to be better. But I got to get the ball a little earlier in the game so I can be in the game. So I can play well also. I mean, he sounds fed up with whatever direction this Titans offense is going in under their new coach, Callahan. So, I mean, and big part of that is Will Levis turns the ball over. He can't make good throws. He's got a live arm, but he just does not seem to know how to use it. And it's just one of those things where, like, he's facing the Bills. This could really be a repeat of Bills-Jaguars where they smoked them. But, like, it's one of those things where I'm curious to see how Will Levis throws the ball against this team because this defense is, to a degree, beatable.
I would love to see Will Levis sit behind Tannehill for 2 to 3 years.
I agree.
Like you said, he's got a live arm. He's got the arm. He's got the talent. He's got everything about that. He needs the vision. He needs the vision of, like, you know, sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. Like, Tannehill isn't an Aaron Rodgers, but Tannehill at least was smart with the ball. And to have Will Levis sit behind him for a few years and learn the offense and learn what the coaching wants and learn what the NFL is would have been amazing. But, like, now you're throwing this, like, you know, overdrafted, right? Can we agree with that? Like, overdrafted quarterback into the fire and saying what he's got. Like, it's like, yeah. It's like throwing a coin into a pond and saying, hey, I wish myself well. Nah, not going to happen. That's my rant. That's my rant with Will Levis.
For sure.
I feel that he should have sat behind somebody for a quick minute, learn the game, maybe come out like a Geno Smith or a
Jordan Love.
Yeah, Jordan Love. I mentioned it before. I don't have much trust in our Eagles. I just think that the left hand isn't talking to the right hand, and the coaching staff is just a jumble of a mess. And when the coaching staff's a jumble of a mess, guess what? The players are a jumble of a mess. And we might have the talent, but we don't have the vision. So Giants have a chance to win this game. They have a chance to win this game. We have the talent. But again, I'm scared of our coaching.
They have a good coach too.
They do have a good coach. The Giants, I really like him, and unfortunately, I hate to say it as a Philadelphia guy, but Daboll is a good coach. He's a good coach. Uh-huh. He don't have the talent that the Eagles have. You flip the scenario. You put Daboll in Philly and Sirianni in New York. Oof.
Not going well.
So that's my game of the week. I think the Giants will win this game, unfortunately.
I don't know where you are, but you can show me. Go to privacy settings.
Shoot, my phone's going off. Eggman, what's your game of Futures Past?
I'm going to go with this game as my game of the week, Lions-Vikings. I think that'll be a great game. I think it's going to be one of those games. I think it can be one of those games where low 30s to high 20s of a score, and I think it's going to be one of those games where kind of everybody in that game has a game, fantasy-wise, and that division is so much fun to watch with the Vikings, with the Lions, with the Packers, and now the Bears, obviously up and coming with Caleb, and that receiving core. That division's really rapidly becoming a division that is the most fun to watch in football, I think.
Okay, here's my question: who is the top receiver in that game? Amar, Williams. You got.
I'm gonna go Jefferson,
or
Addison. I'm gonna go Jefferson.
Okay.
I think the Lions secondary is more susceptible to big receiver games than the Minnesota secondary is. I think the Minnesota run defense could be a little bit of a Swiss cheese at times, especially with Gibbs and Monty running it the way they do. I think that'll eat into whatever production you would see out of a Amon-Ra and J-Mo, but I think with Aaron Jones possibly missing this week for Minnesota, Ty Chandler is a solid backup, but Jefferson is fantastic.
All right, here we go. All right, so my question of the week. You ready for this? Who is going to win? The New Jersey Unicorns or Show Me Your TDs? We got Petey first, the Unicorn. For first place, one is, 5-0? 6-0. Sorry, I apologize. 6-0, and one is 5-1. The 5-1 team has a lot of things to say coming from behind.
Come from our co-host who's MIA right now.
MIA. He
talk a smack.
He's got to take naps. He's got a lot of things going on. He's got naps. He's got softball. Obviously, I would not be here if my daughter or son had softball. They don't. They play on the weekends. But number one versus number two. He circled it. Sean circled it on the calendar. I want to hear the Eggman's prediction on.
Well, we're gonna put this matchup on the screen too, and then you're gonna see just. I shouldn't say how uneven it is, but how one team's a clear overachiever and another team's a clear. Holy shit! How did this guy get all these players? Rat. But
yeah.
It's just, kind of like what I said. If the Lions run the ball, Panda Pete's got Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's also got a Raiders wide receiver, Trey Tucker, in at his flex, which I think is probably going to be subject to change. Given, actually, I'll take that back. It's probably not going to be subject to change. His bench is really not that deep.
Yeah, no. I think it's gonna be. I think we might have a new number one next week.
I think a 20-point win. I think a 20-point win is more than fair for
20 points.
I'll put the spread at 19.5 in favor of the Unicorns.
I'm sorry, Fred. What'd you say? What about injuries and the Unicorn having players go down? Coming in hot from Fred. Fred said that Sean and the Unicorns might have 2 injuries this week. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate you.
That's a big deal, Fred. Yeah.
Fred's predicting. Either way, there's my X question of the week. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube for content. Please subscribe.
One more. I gotta give one more question. What happened to your team in our matchup? I actually had a week for once. And I had ETN who had negative 0.07 points for me.
I was worried about you and the Hurricane, dude. I played the sympathy card. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was concerned for your health and well-being.
It's fine. No, it's fine. I'll take the 172 points to 137, and I'll take my quarterbacks finally putting up more than like 8 or 10 points in the game for once.
It was a rough week for me overall. Either way. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube for content. Please subscribe. We are the 4th and 3 Amigos podcast. Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We're out there. Love it. Live it. Let's go.
Appreciate y'all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Hey,
night.
Hopefully Sean joins us next week instead of Fred.
Yeah.
Fred, you didn't have much to go on, but, you did predict 2 injuries on Sean's team. So,
yeah.
Good job, Fred.